Welcome back, everybody. It is Sunday. It's time for part four of our breakdown of DC, The New Frontier, the Darwyn Cooke classic. Goal for this, Mike and I, over the next year, participating in what we're calling the Watchmen Challenge. We took 12 weeks, we broke down Watchmen, and then Mike and I are taking about 10 contenders that are often considered among the greatest comics of all time. We're going to read those, break those down, and then in the last week with each one, we're going to do kind of comparative rankings to see where it compares to Watchmen and hopefully kind of come up with some sort of top 10 list of the greatest graphic novels of all time. It's encouraging for you guys if you want to read along with us. New Frontier, they did put this in a compact format for about $10 if you want to read, or you can have, as Mike does, one of the classic formats that are out there. We would definitely encourage you guys to read along as you go. Mike, I'll kick it to you to start. We are on part four of our breakdown. We're doing 2 chapters a week of this. So we are on chapters 7 and 8 of this book. We've been introduced to a lot of characters in the DC universe so far, but we'll start with your thoughts on this. What did you think about chapter 7 and 8 of Darwyn Cooke's New Frontier?
Every chapter is a masterpiece in this story in my book. And this arc between these two chapters is great. There's a lot that stood out to me. I love the way that we get a little more challengers of the unknown, and the device that Cook used to put it into the story was when John Jones is like, let me go to the movies. This Mars Attacks movie is playing, and I'm going to get a pulse because, he can feel the vibes of the audience or whatever. Because John, in his character in this book, he's stuck on Earth, right? And he doesn't know, he wants to fit in like Superman does.
Mm-hmm.
But so he's exposing himself to the culture to try and find out, how Earth will perceive him, if he'll be accepted. Can he find a new home here or not? So he goes to this movie, and during the newsreel, I love the little homage they did to the Max Fleischer cartoons.
Yes, yeah.
The old movies, they had the cartoon there, and then the newsreel started, and it was all about the challenges of the unknown, which I thought was really great way um, to put more about the challengers, who are rather obscure. We got introduced to them a few chapters ago, but this really helps them become more established. And I love the way that Cook finds these ways to grab these characters that are lesser known and put them into this story, because the payoff is going to be, of course, they're all at the end of the story. But that was kind of cute. And also some very powerful moments. Um, but this arc overall was about, to me, was about how Martian Manhunter comes to the decision he comes to after spending a few years on Earth.
Yeah, I think one of the things Darwyn Cooke does really well, and obviously we're comparing things to Watchmen here. One of the things that I would say with the New Frontier that stands out to me, one, the art on every page is fantastic. Like you said, one of the great things about the New Frontier, where you can just appreciate, even if you don't love some of the story beats at times, Darwyn Cooke is going all out on every panel. The aesthetic of the time period, the way he draws the characters. And what's cool is he has such a consistent art style, but he's so unique in how he draws characters like Batman compared to characters like the Flash. And I think what he does really good, and this is a critique I'd have of even some of my favorite artists. I love Jim Lee. To me, Jim Lee is probably my favorite comic book artist of all time, even though Jack Kirby's the greatest. Lee would be my favorite of all time. But Jim Lee always draws the characters to be too bulky. Right? When Jim Lee draws the Flash looks too much like Batman. And I
Yeah,
think you could take a picture of Jim Lee's Lois Lane and Jim Lee's Wonder Woman, and really the only difference typically is one's got a sword. And so I
yeah,
think while he's an exquisitely great artist, that's a problem. What I love about Darwyn Cooke, the way the Flash is built is different than other superheroes. He emphasizes the sleek kind of runner thing of the Flash. The way that John Jones looks, the way that Hal Jordan looks, the way that Batman does, the way he captures ages of the characters. That's the cool stuff for me with reading The New Frontier is Darwyn's so dang consistent, but so unique with his character design and how he does all the characters. And that's really cool to see an artist go to town on that. I think the other thing that's great is you mentioned one thing Darwyn does really well, the way he's playing upon, we see a lot with John Henry in this. John Jones relating to John Henry's story, dealing with some of the racial discrimination, civil rights issues and racial discrimination that took place in the time period that he's covering, um, the role of superheroes in the world. He's touching on a lot of deep themes, real world events, but where I will give him 100% credit for, you and I have talked about this on this channel before. We do not mind politics or social issues in comics. What we mind is when those become more important than the comic book story. And what Darwyn has a real deft touch for is you never lose focus on this being a DC universe story with Martian Manhunters and Batmans and Green Lanterns and Flashes and Challengers of the Unknown. But he weaves in these other narratives that really make it go to a different level that works really, really well. And I give him a ton of credit for that because that's a balance too many writers now today just don't do well.
So in this part of the story, like I said, the two chapters are about John Jones, and ultimately he decides, he gets the pulse from what happened in the movie theater. He gets you know, the he gets the read on the John Henry story, like John Henry is dead, and then he sees the Flash say, I quit, you know, I can't do this anymore if the government's going to be chasing me around. And he decides that, he's got to go back home. And but this is the other great thing about Darwyn Cooke. The overarching thing, at least in the first part, well, it comes to play in the second part, is the paranormal and the paranoia, because you get to see the deep, dark underbelly of John Faraday, and they've got this super secret program, and they're trying to capture the Flash and make him work for the government. And they've got this super secret rocket program. And oh, by the way, we've got the center, the doomsday is coming, and
Mm-hmm.
what are we going to do about it? And the people that know about it have all gone crazy, like the scientists that worked, and they're paranoid, like the scientists that worked at Ferris Air. And so you get to see the underhanded part of Faraday coming in and taking away the cracked up scientist who's trying to warn everybody. You see the guy that's creating the book, he commits suicide, and we get a great Batman sequence in there. Talk about the Batman sequence,
Yeah,
please.
and this is where Darwyn to me does such a great job is again, like you mentioned, we're talking about some heavier themes, especially with the time period he's covering, as far as especially 50s and comics was a dark time too. And I think that's really where this works is he's covering what was especially a brutal period for comic books in terms of them being attacked. And so I think that's where the themes work well. But then Darwyn also does what makes him Darwyn Cooke, and what makes him great at this stuff is he understands these characters so well. We get that awesome Batman moment where he confronts Martian Manhunter. He's figured out who he is. He's kind of telling him like, "Hey, you're going to help me. It's not a request." And I love it.
Right.
Just perfect Batman line of it took a $70,000 sliver of a meteor to stop the one in Metropolis. All I need for you is a penny for a book of matches. And that is, and you get the cool like the Batman silhouette hanging over John Jones in there.
Yeah.
That's the part where he does so well, and I think it's this was what really struck me in these two chapters is he's very much diving into real world things here. But what he does so good is, like we mentioned a bit earlier in the previous videos, doesn't lose sight of no, you need to think Batman is cool.
Yeah.
You need these moments too. And I think that balance is what saves this book from being it's a cool historical piece, which it would be, but it makes it such a relevant and cool comic book that you have where there's also those moments too. And
Yeah.
that's dark. I think the other part that's just great art when he does the whole Paradise Island sequence with Wonder Woman.
Oh, I was just going to turn to that part.
I think I'll let you expand on what you think on that part, but I
Yeah.
love art. I love the fact that it transitions from Gotham as this rain-soaked, dreary, awful place, and then he draws Themyscira and Wonder Woman and all these Amazons as these beautiful creatures in this beautiful land, and that's the cool thing in the versatility that he has, where he can shift things like that. And so I overall he does such a good job balancing all that.
and you know, Superman's there to try and recruit Wonder Woman back,
Hmm.
and I just love his face here at the end where she's like, "No, you don't get it, Cal. They just don't want me. Um, I don't have the same ideals as your government does right now." And how what we were doing in the 40s together during World War II, it was all black and white and everything, we knew what side we were on. And now, you know, so that really like plays into, the confrontation they had earlier in the story when she was in Vietnam and Superman, confronted her there. But this really, sets Wonder Woman firmly in the right. She understands you understand why she is the way she is. And her motives are good, but her not wanting to join, she's like, if you're still working with these guys, I'm not working with you, Superman.
Yeah.
And in that expression, he knows she's right. Like he's got to change. He's got to figure out how to bring, the government along and make things right, and be able to talk about and confront some of the things that are happening in the country right now.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect. I think what this does is he's exploring a perfect period of time where there's enough things happening. But what I will also say that he does a great job of, he doesn't over exaggerate, in my opinion. And I think this is something we see comics do now, where they just draw entire time periods like it was just an awful, awful thing, and everyone was a horrible person. And what I think Darwin does a really good job of balancing is he captures the darkness and the uncompromising things that were happening in this time period that are very dark, not great, horrible kind of things when you look back that are not incredible marks for America in terms of what was going on. But he doesn't present the whole country as monstrous. He doesn't present
Yeah.
everybody as evil. He presents, hey, there's some influential figures who are doing the wrong things, but there's a balance, and I think that's an important thing he does. Um, the
And
only
in
thing
that
with this
in
is,
that way, Diana's trying to help him find his North Star,
mhm.
by
No,
her saying,
it's a well written piece.
I can go back to Themyscira anytime. Well, she thinks she can,
Mhm.
but eventually she's gonna have to come back. And you guys, you boys can go play in your own world for a while and see how that happens. Don't involve me. If you don't want my help, don't ask for it, kind
Yeah.
of thing,
No,
which
we
is
cut
tough.
to just sort of the end, and we get a lot of Hal Jordan stuff. I think that's the one piece. And again, we're trying to critically examine these things. I do think the Hal Jordan piece drags on a bit much. I think Hal's a great character. I love what they're doing with Ferris Air and them being, building the experimental rocket to go to Mars and things like that. I think a lot of that's really cool. That's the one part of this, and we're again with us critiquing this in comparison to Watchmen. Alan Moore was super efficient in the way he wrote Watchmen. I felt like everything was intentional, especially, there's things in Watchmen when you look and you go like, man, that seemed to be kind of weird. When you get that rug pull in issue 11, everything falls into piece like a jigsaw puzzle. And you're like, that's what that was. I do feel like Darwin at times gets a little self-indulgent with some of the things. And that to me is the only kind of, again, it's a masterpiece and I love the thing. But if I had to level any critique, it would be that a bit.
Are you
Um,
talking about the car show, Reed, where they had a little
car show
fun?
piece. And again, it's nothing is unnecessary. It's just sometimes one or two pages too long, one or two. And again, the art is fantastic, which makes up
It's
for it.
amazing, right? It was a
But
little bit of the, let's have fun in the time period, and he did it well, I think. But yeah, it's a very dark story arc, these two chapters. It was a little bit of brevity in the middle of it, I think, but
no,
it
I
was
think you bring up a great point there, and I think maybe he recognized, hey, these are heavier themes. Let's throw a couple cool, light, bright,
right.
fun pages in there.
Yeah,
And they're not poorly done. It's just I think it dragged on a bit.
yeah.
We'll close it out with this. Mike, your
Levity.
favorite character of all time is the Flash.
Yeah.
There's a moment in here where the Flash basically says, "Man, I can't keep doing this. I'm gonna walk away." As a Flash fan, what did you think of that moment reading it?
It was. it was a shocker, but you can also understand the time frame, and also it harkens back to Watchmen. If you're a costume superhero, you're illegal right now, unless you've registered or come forward like
Mhm.
Superman and Wonder Woman did, and Batman did not. So Flash. I like what he said. I if I'm going to be hounded like a criminal, it's just not worth it. And he's going to hang up the golden wings.
Mhm.
So it was, of course, I know what's going to happen, but so I know he'll be back. But I like the way he did it, like bursting onto the television set, and how John Jones is at the bar, and he sees that, and he's drinking with Slam Bradley, and he's thinking to himself, "Yeah, I'm out of here too." So I think it carried the plot forward. I really do.
No, I think it was a cool moment to put in there. Definitely an unexpected piece, I think, of reading it. But I think,
Yeah,
again, knowing what happens and knowing where he goes with it, it builds a little tension.
he's coming back. You can't hang up those red boots forever, dude.
No, I think that's ultimately kind of to put a bow on these couple of chapters. I think this is probably as dark as the story gets, especially the John Henry piece of things. But what I will always give Darwyn Cooke an immense amount of credit for, and I think this shows in his what's the story, Batman Ego as well that he did. He has such a cool and distinct voice for all the characters, and I give him so much credit on sticking to it's DC the New Frontier, not
Yeah.
Batman the New Frontier, not Superman the New Frontier. This book highlights the Challengers, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, Flash, Batman gets cool moments, Wonder Woman gets cool moments. I love Slam Bradley even in there. I love the commitment that he had to this is a DC universe story. And I think so often we see folks try to, I think event books now do this quite often where it's like, the book, in order to work, has to forget that certain characters exist because they've changed the plot, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing like Civil War, the Marvel comic book, it's kind of one of those convenient things of like, well, Thor was dead, and we're just gonna make the Hulk not a factor because basically, if the Hulk showed up, whatever side he's on, that
Yeah.
Civil War's ending rather fast for the other side. And so, what I love
Exactly
about
right.
Darwyn is there is nothing like that in this story. Every character's playing a piece. Batman has a cool and unique role, but it doesn't over exaggerate what Batman would do with this kind of problem. And I think that's really cool, and I give him a ton of credit for that.
Yeah, and they carried this whole thing forward. And at the end, I just want to show this towards the end, we'll show this little three-panel montage, like,
Mhm.
you know, Hal messes up big time
Yep.
and in the simulator, and he gets thrown off the mission, and even Carol's mad at him. She
Yep.
slams her office door. So like at is a little bit of a cliffhanger. Like we finish up with John Henry, and we get a little in the Flash and everything. And but you don't know like Hal Jordan's not on the project anymore. What's going on?
Yeah. No, he takes some narrative risks that I think are pretty cool, and I think put it in unique places. And it's a unique and rare talent that can tell a story that touches on social issues of the time, perfectly weaves the characters in, gives you cool character moments,
And
balances the art.
40
It's why you and
characters?
I hold this story so well.
Yeah, how do you get like 40 characters? How do you pull that off? Well, you got to call Darwin Cook.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but that'll wrap up the fourth part of this, chapter 7 and 8. We will be back next week with chapters 9 and 10 of the Darwyn Cooke classic, DC: The New Frontier. Let us know your thoughts down below if you're reading along with us, whether this is a new video for you or you find it later on down the line. Let us know what you guys think. As always, folks, thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We'll catch you in our next video, folks.
Thanks, everybody.